Greetings, everyone. It is, yes, the favorite time of the week. I know it's getting old for most of you, but I'm going to say it anyway. My favorite time of the week, and that is being brought at work live. It is a Tuesday, and some of you may recognize my guest, especially if you joined us live a couple of weeks ago or caught it on the replay. You may remember Amelia Roberts, but if you're new to Amelia, let me reintroduce you or introduce you to her. I'm going to read her bio here. Amelia, as a digital native, has long enjoyed using technology and social media to spread helpful information and connecting friends with resources they need. She officially became a practitioner of online marketing 12 years ago with a role as a virtual assistant. One thing led to another, and now, alongside other hats, Amelia serves as a visibility expert and digital marketing consultant. In short, she went from using social media for cat videos to using these same tools to establish relationships with humans who have media platforms and need her client services. When she's not building relationships at scale and working with powerhouse professionals who are tired of hiding, Amelia enjoys planning real and imagined food tours.
Hey there.
Hey, welcome back, Amelia. It's
Hi.
happy to
Thank
have you
you.
here at Being
Thank you.
Brown
Thank
at Work
you.
Live.
Thank
Yes,
thank you. Glad to be here.
absolutely. We're going to jump right into this because as we just got through chatting before we went live, this is a topic that I know until I met you. I didn't really hear much about. I read Michelle's book that you referenced, but really didn't hear much about this. So I think it's so important that my audience learns what assumed leadership is,
Hmm.
and then most importantly, how they can deal with it. If they see it actually happening, or if they're sitting in a seat where they can drive systemic change, that they know how to recognize this to drive change. So, Amelia, why don't you kick us off with what is assumed leadership?
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for bringing me back to continue this conversation because
Yes.
how this got on my radar actually came. Well, we'll share about that, but we were previously talking. Our last conversation was about your ecosystem of support.
Yes.
Why is it so important to have different people around you more than sponsors and mentors, but in your personal life, even
Hmm.
being open to receiving abundant support. Why is it
Yes.
sometimes Black women aren't used to receiving abundant support in our personal life? And when we unpack that, it's because some of us haven't been exposed to that at an early age. And there's
Hmm.
others of us who are different from you and me in gender and race who
Right.
might have been used to that. And so in Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, she talks about her time at Princeton. And in contrast from her time when she was brought up in the South Side of Chicago to
Hmm.
Princeton, she said their trust in the world seemed infinite, their forward progress in it entirely assured. And everything, talk about everything at Princeton, what seemed to be set up and was designed to accommodate their well being. And she went on to talk about how. People had their bikes unlocked and left gold hoops on the sink, and it it was just so different.
Different. Hmm.
Um, and then she also had gone on to talk about when she was at Sidley Austin,
Yes. Sid Lee Law Firm. Hmm.
Sidley Law Firm.
Hmm.
She had a role where she made sure that the incoming potential people who might end up working there, that they were happy on the job, that they had everything that they needed, they felt connected to the larger team, that they felt like they were part. She even described it as a wooing process. So
Hmm.
from Princeton, going in and then going into a professional setting, more of a wooing process. I'm not saying that bed and roses are out there, but there's a certain level of support that some people might be used to and who might be groomed for leadership. And
Hmm.
so I would just said, wow, that's different. This isn't something that I am familiar with. And I was in a group, and Joy Pittman, an HR expert, talked about this term called assumed leadership. And essentially, there are a group of people, like if I were in front of a room and there was somebody next to me who was different in race and gender, they might assume between the two of us that one of us was the leader and the other wasn't. And
Hmm.
or if we were in a work organization, there might be an assumption that one of us who's different from me in race and gender might be more geared towards or more interested in leadership and leadership programs and training
Right.
than I am. And so this concept called assumed leadership really wants to democratize preparing potential candidates for management to really it's a new approach to HR recruitment and training. And
Mm,
if anyone wants to delve deeper in that, definitely reach out to Joy Pittman.
sure.
But it really wants to democratize how leadership candidates um, are selected, just paying attention to some of the societal filters that there might be,
Yes.
and really wants to democratize and distribute management potential.
Yes, and I think this kind of work that Joy's doing is so important, and the what you said is the new progress, systemic change that's happening in our HR systems across various companies and workplaces. It's extremely important because I can remember, when I went to Carnegie Mellon, I shared this with you, similar experience that Michelle had. I mean, because I didn't grow up in in a neighborhood or a city where it was groomed to go to end up in Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I was only the second person in my mother's entire family, including, her eight brothers and sisters, and the only other person was one of her brothers and other cousins to go to college. So, when I entered Carnegie Mellon, I will have to say though, and I shared this with you, they were a little bit intentional around the assumed leadership thought process. Probably wasn't called that back then because they did have what was called Carnegie Mellon Action Project, CMAP, where they allowed us to come spend the summer, take classes, get acclimated to the campus so that we weren't shell shocked as African Americans, which was usually 3% of us or 2% of us on campus. We weren't shell shocked. But still, I was still in that environment where people probably were prepared and groomed, right? And even
Hmm.
today, in the workplace, a lot of that takes place when we're making decisions on who should go to a leadership training course, who should be selected for this next opportunity. So that's why this conversation is so critical. What
Hmm.
I'd like to do as we delve into it some more, Amelia, is talk about, how other Black and Brown women, if they find themselves, possibly experiencing this assumed leadership experience in their workplace, what they might do to create a shift, right? That allows them to be noticed as those individuals that should be in the
Hmm.
leadership training program. What would you recommend?
Well, if you're not in an environment where you're assumed a leader, just know that you are a leader. All of us are leaders
Yes.
of our own career and whatnot. So we already are. So now that we have that fact settled, I definitely invite people to organize their, well, one, a couple weeks ago, we talked about building your ecosystem of support, right?
Right, right.
Because in this because of various things certain support systems we not might not have grown up with you've mentioned that even like emotionally. And I'll answer get
Mhm.
back to your question. I was just listening to a podcast where this lady was talking about she was she was like maybe 20 years older than me, and not that this is ideal, but she was saying that she was going through some stressful times in her life, and her mom said, hey, would you like a Valium? This has a point. She said, would you like a Valium? Because, her mom was going through,
Okay.
stress and went to the doctor and was prescribed, this was like years, decades ago, was
Hmm.
prescribed Valium. And, she was in a stressful, and so she was offered, the support. But long story short, it's like, I've never, been offered that type of
Right.
support, period.
Sure.
And neither
Right.
has my mom, and neither has
Right.
her mom. It's just, there's certain things that have been normalized. Not that that's, like I said, that's great, but there's certain types of support that's been normalized. And if that hasn't been your story, definitely take a look, listen to our conversation about building your own ecosystem of support,
Yes.
because sometimes the scaffolding of life, personal life, professional life, only goes up to a certain point,
Hmm.
because success has tend to stop at a certain point.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm.
we have like the Oprahs and the Beyoncés and the unicorns, but sometimes it's going to take more initiative on our part, and we talked more about
Yes.
that. But in any case, so step one, I'd say organize your thoughts and feelings around, how you wish to display your leadership accomplishments or your personal accomplishments. And then once you do that, think about how you want to create a plan that effortlessly supports that brilliance being displayed in a way
Yes, I
that
like that.
that definitely isn't overwhelming to you and absolutely can still keep you in visionary and creative mode. And that might look like getting more support. Um,
Hmm.
Virtual assistants are absolutely a thing professional women can use in in their professional life, right? Um, it's an absolute thing. Even if it has to come out of your own pocket, it could
Hmm.
be worth it just to preserve your sanity. And that can absolutely help when you have, whether it's a virtual assistant level support or even having someone come into your home to take care of a project that's taking up, your bandwidth, right?
Yeah.
If you're working on a major project at work, that means that there is, even though we people recommend compartmentalizing stuff, let's be honest. If
Yes.
if you're in
Yeah.
a stretch where you're working on a series of stressful, demanding projects at work, and at home, you're also, maybe getting into this organizing thing, or your office is, not how you want it to be. It might
Yes.
make sense to invest in a professional home organizer
Sure.
to come in over a weekend and just clear stuff out, or
Yeah.
just during that time it might make sense to have a cleaner come into your home, so at least
Right.
you're not worried about cleaning and laundry for these next 3 weeks while you're focusing on this, and you can just come home and enjoy your family. I mean, it might make sense. So just think about things that might be able to keep yourself in a desired state, um, because again, sometimes it's because of the exposures that we've had that have been different from others, not better or worse, but just different.
Just different.
We might be used to just being in a state of struggle. Being in a struggle
Yes.
state is what's familiar.
Oh my gosh.
And
That is no, but no,
and
Amelia, that's an excellent point. Because as Black and brown women, we kind of are, we grew up in the state of struggle, I mean that, and that can become dangerously familiar to us, and then not allow us to realize the importance of an ecosystem of support, right?
Mhm,
And then we talk, and that's part of that internalization of not seeing ourselves as leaders
mhm,
or worthy of those leadership positions, those high level training courses and such. And that's where that mind shift change is critical. I love what you said. I mean, because you are a leader and you do deserve the support necessary to be successful. I want to tie it back to our conversation a couple of weeks ago, too,
mhm.
because in addition to the support you mentioned in your personal life, and everybody that you guys listening, I always say who you are personally is who you are professionally. You can't
Mhm,
separate the two. So
mhm.
that support personally critical. But wouldn't you also say the ecosystem professionally is so important? I love some of uh, the titles you give people in the ecosystem, like the spotters and the
Yeah,
cheerleaders. Why don't
yes.
you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think of your professional life as you're an athlete, right? There's just so many examples that go well, like particularly a marathon, right? This isn't a sprint
Which
where
is
you
your
can,
career,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yes,
There's no
yes,
sprinting here, and then it's
right.
all done, and then we all, yeah, no. It's a marathon, and along the way of preparing and getting prepared, you have people who are your spotters. As you're preparing your body to be able to take on this extended stamina, you're in the gym, you're pressing weights, but there's
Yeah.
someone there in case weights get too heavy who can come and spot, be a spotter or stand in
Hmm.
for you. And that's professionally speaking as well. Do you have somebody
Yes.
that can possibly stand in for you, say something does come up, someone on your team, or even if you are like working volunteering, so many of us love volunteering, and to sometimes our detriment. But is there someone who can come in and kind of pick for
Yes.
you? What does that look like? What does a spotter look like? What does a cheerleader look like? Somebody who might be able to help you imagine reaching new heights and cheer you along.
Yes.
They
Exactly.
might not be your they might not be senior to you in any way, but or and they might be, but they might just have a different perspective of where you fit in on the industry of offering different solutions, and where you see yourself. They just might have a different vantage point, and of course you have your coaches and Oh goodness, you have like so you have a few. Okay, I'm blanking on them, but please
Yeah,
go
but
back. So yeah.
and that's, yeah, it's perfect. And in the professional world, we usually look at them as mentors. We
Yeah.
also can have accountability partners, somebody
Mhm.
that can hold us accountable to making sure that we do hold ourselves as worthy and be intentional. I think you shared this a couple weeks ago too, being intentional about building that support so that the assumed leadership piece is not something that you're necessarily dealing with on a regular basis, or you're part of that paradigm shift
Mhm.
around assumed leadership.
Yes,
Yes?
yes, yes, and that's the last part that I really like about that idea. Again, if you're listening to this and you would like to democratize leadership and management training and potential well not potential but management training to people of various potentials, even though they may not fit the typical ones that society gives us. Definitely
Yes.
reach out to Joy Pittman, who works with teams in various ways, and I sure hope I'm saying that correctly. But
Yeah,
reach out to me. I'll introduce you to her. But in any case,
absolutely.
because she might say like that's not what I do. But in any case, but
No,
she
but
yeah
that's important. I
yes
think it's
yes
important to democratize that. I mean, because
hmm
a lot of times, who we believe for whatever reason, be it biases, be it not that, but we choose individuals for training. Um, we don't always necessarily do it from an equitable, common playing field, right?
yeah
And so we make some assumptions, and we also do it by what we're comfortable with, which is a lot of times what we see. Somebody looks like us or doesn't look like us, right? Which mostly you and I don't in the room. So then, those assumptions are made. And then, those are the people that are get on the list. So no, I think her work is extremely important.
hmm
And just to know that that thought process is happening
hmm
in the HR world is
hmm
wonderful.
yeah yeah and something else that I really that is we sort of talked about it how some as for kids, support around preparing papers for college entry. Everyone would gather around the table during like the holidays. That's when the family from different areas came, and everyone would just bring their papers. And they had, and this is actually like not something I'm making up. This is someone I work with. They shared it, and they're like, yeah, this time of year, everyone is gathering up because they're bringing their papers to the kitchen table because that's when everyone to get support with that. And something else that has been normalized in certain in lanes has been executive function coaching for kids.
Ah,
Yeah,
wow.
and really all of that is if you listen to this and like, Amelia, I didn't have an executive function coach when, I was, growing up, and they didn't help me shape, my thought process and how I'm dealing with things in the professional world that could have absolutely helped me. Um, Really, when it comes to those types of support and building your ecosystem of support, just think about what you need. We talked about making a category of like things that you
Mm-hmm.
like to do, things that you want to learn to do, things that you hate to do, things that you love to do. And really under like the love to do part, while I like to leave it open for people to decide like what they
Sure.
want to do, definitely consider like having a routine meeting or routine time for yourself with yourself where you are spending time organizing your thoughts, and just to
Yes.
have like a stopping point in life where you are sitting with yourself to see, hey, am I on the right track with the goals that I want to, complete? With the,
Mm-hmm.
professional or personal goals that I wanted to complete, where am I? Let me stop and pause, and have this like on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or monthly,
Oh,
where you
yes.
just are just having a routine meeting, checking in with yourself, organizing your ideas, and just honoring that stopping point in life. And of course, if you don't hold yourself to it, there are coaches. There are
Yeah.
professional coaches out there, and
Yes.
speaking of, right?
Yes.
Somebody to hold space like that. That's absolutely a thing that we can get like right now. if we didn't necessarily grow up with that type of support in our life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so important is recognizing when you do need help. And
Mhm.
it could be somebody as simple as I mentioned it a few minutes ago, is an accountability partner, somebody that you truly believe has your best interests at heart. And so it's so important. I love what you said about establishing goals for yourself and revisiting those on a regular basis, sitting down, giving yourself space and grace to go through those goals. Are you achieving? Are you still on path? Has anything changed? Has
Mhm.
something new come up? That is understanding. And again, looking in the mirror and realizing that you are a leader, that you are worthy of that type of focus, attention, and support so that you can achieve those
Mhm.
goals.
Yeah.
This has been a phenomenal conversation, Amelia. The assumed leadership piece, I thought I knew some of it, but chatting with you this second time around, and thank you so much for joining me the second time. I just think it was absolutely phenomenal and really, really informational. So, is you mentioned Joy Pittman. I'm sure people can
Mhm.
Google her,
Yeah.
learn more about the training that she does. But, it's also, I think, what I'd like to wrap up this conversation with is really just helping people understand what it means. And I
Mhm.
think you said something that I thought was so important because you kind of calibrated me before we came on live. It doesn't necessarily have to mean it's bad,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key. It's
Mhm.
just that there are people that are a different race and gender that had different experiences that better position them for certain leadership and various types of things. But
Yes.
because you and I weren't, doesn't mean that we can't be. That's
Mhm.
the key, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, because like I said, when because the world of Princeton and the world of um, the high powered law firms, that was like a world that was foreign to me. I didn't. I knew it
Sure.
existed. I knew it was a thing, but her description of it was like, wow, this is like amazing. I never knew of it. And then, like I said, when Joy Pittman talked about the term assumed leadership, that
Hmm.
actually really does seek to empower prospective leadership
Yes.
candidates to assume leadership. All of
Yes.
us really democratize that process. That's the goal. When I had that term in comparison or alongside the description of how people had been groomed for
Yes.
success, and it was just assured. That was the term. It was like their success was just, it was expected.
Assured. Yeah.
And that can be stressful too,
Yes,
because
it can.
if you
Hmm.
are in that circumstance, and then you're not for
Right.
whatever reason, it's just,
Right.
that can also bring a whole different, but we're not talking about that. But long story short, it's like, wow, there was a name to it. There was something, and then when I started to think about the ecosystem of support that I've talked about for a long time,
Hmm.
how it really is important for you to intentionally build the scaffolding around you that goes past a certain level that you may have been
Yes.
prepared for, because sometimes, just because of different things, everyone's
Right.
just happy that you graduated high school, or sometimes everyone's just happy that
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
have a quote good job, and everyone's
Right.
happy. And so if you're trying to do anything beyond that, not that that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just that scaffolding is sort of limited. You're definitely going
Yes.
to have to intentionally start to build out your own system of support.
Absolutely.
And there's blueprints out there. There's lots of them. I mean, I talk about mine, but there's
Yeah.
others too.
Yeah.
And there's really are lots of people who can help and support you in so many different ways. I just want people to know that that you have the capacity to receive abundant support if you want to. And
Yes.
then that whole getting used to receiving can sometimes be a challenge because we're just not used to it.
Sure.
Literally, sometimes we weren't necessarily built for that type of
Right.
support. But I think just these conversations and talking to the support that does exist in real life, that is out there, that is normalized in certain, around certain dinner tables, is, I think, is important to even broadening our mind to what might be
Exactly.
possible.
What is the, yes, what is possible?
Mhm.
Just like assumed leadership and knowing that it is possible, although it may not have been assured for you in your path beforehand, know that it is possible, which is why this conversation was so important, and tying it back to the conversation we had 2 weeks ago about establishing our support systems. Amelia, thank you so very much for joining me again today. I truly appreciate you. And so, look, if listening to this live, and if you're catching it on the replay, would love to have you share in the comments some of your aha moments around maybe in an environment similar to what I shared in Carnegie Mellon, what was mentioned in Michelle Obama's book when she was at Princeton, and then she came from the South Side of Chicago, which was something totally different. If you've experienced any of that, and how you're intentionally going about shifting your mindset and rewriting your narrative and your paradigm because you are worth it, and you're already that leader. That leader's within. It's just about pulling it out. So Amelia, again, thank you so much,
You're most
and
welcome.
I will see everyone, of course, when next Tuesday. Yes, take care.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you.